currently serving in a couple of capacities. I'm an educator in the school system in Prince George's County. And I also am the curator and founder of Divine Dance Institute. And it is a arts and humanities programming, so we haven't been able to be in the building, of course, and we're just starting to practice the procedures for being in the building. I think the greatest challenge is your recovery plan that has 4 different scenarios of what's the worst that can happen. And so before you can get it on paper and distribute it, one of the worst things happen. And so you're like, I didn't even get a chance to put it into practice yet. So today and these last couple of months, I think that's been the biggest thing. I think the whole, if you don't know you're exposed, and quarantining for 14 days and making sure that you have, staff teams rather than just the regular staff who's been doing what they were normally doing, those kinds of things. It just makes it difficult because you want to have a strong foundation, but you always feel like you're on shaky ground. So yeah, that's pretty much, to start.
Thank you. Anyone else want to chime in how things are, where they're at in their organization?
Hi, I'm Grace Hamilton Mayfield, the Artistic Director for Hamilton Academy of the Arts in Louisiana. We are really doing great, actually, in spite of COVID. We were able to pivot right when COVID occurred. We went straight into, we have an after-school performing arts program, dance, music, and theater. So we were able to pivot immediately with 11 weeks of 29 Zoom classes for kids ages 3 to adult. We ran our normal season because we had a lot of systems already in place. We're starting our 40th season. So because we had a lot of systems in place, we were able to make that pivot quickly and efficiently. So we ran our 11 weeks of Zoom with the closing awards program like we normally would have done in our regular season, of course, without a recital because we couldn't come to the stage as a group. We are still hoping to do some type of small series of maybe a few public performances, hopefully at the end of August. But we are on a break right now because we normally take a break during the summer semester. So we're actually faring out pretty well.
That's good to hear. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else want to jump in on this question?
I think I will. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, everybody. I'm Patty Merritt. Hopefully you all read my open letter about can we survive this pandemic. I can't say that we are doing well. In fact, we're not doing well at all. As I indicated in my open letter, we live in the state of New Jersey. New Jersey was one of the hardest hit states at the very beginning. I think the scariest thing about what's happening is the absolute lack of control. We got a notice one day from the governor that basically said shut down. And shut down really meant shut down. We had to stop everything. We decided early on we did not want to have the Zoom experience. We're not there. And so we've been shut down since the middle of March, since about March 14th. Of course, all of our performances were canceled, the annual show, what we do with the weddings, everything was just canceled. Here we are now in the middle of July, and we're still not certain how we're going to move forward. One of the reasons, again, is the uncertainty. At any moment, the state could issue another proclamation of some sort that says, no, you can't gather, whatever that means, you can't gather. In addition to that, we're really troubled by the conflicting information that's coming out in regards to what the schools should do. And so we live in an area where we service many school districts, but most of them are pretty much saying at this point that even if they open up the schools in September, and that's still an open question, that they're saying that they are canceling all after school activities and they're discouraging any type of group activity. And so we're a dance school, we're a performing company. What exactly does that mean for us? And so even if we want to be quote unquote bold, and so we're going to open up our studio, we're going to downsize as they insist that everyone does here. And that's troubling too, because based on the social distancing and what they're saying, we probably are holding classes where you can't have more than 9 students. And that's a problem because that's not going to carry us through. If you have, 9 students and 3 after school classes Monday through Friday, that's all the time we have, and we can't expand. We're not going to go to Sunday performance. And so that's a problem. And the other thing that we're concerned about, among 100 other things, is that it's clear that some of the parents are at the point where they're not sure they want their children involved in a group activity either. And so we just finished this reviewing a survey that was done here in the state where 45% of the parents are saying that their kids are not going back to school. They're not going back to after school activities, and that impacts us. And so it's the middle of July and we're still not certain what's going to happen in September. And the last part about this is the conversations that are being held around start in middle October or delay the entire semester or have nothing but virtual learning going on. And so we're not sure, and we're both pessimistic and optimistic. And again, the greatest problem I think we have is that it's so much out of our control. It is just out of our control. So that's how we're doing here in at least South Jersey.
I hear you. My name's Crystal Winkler. I'm everything that, was it Denise? I'm sorry, who was speaking?
Patricia was speaking.
Patricia, everything that Patricia said, I am going to echo. I'm in Michigan. I'm the director of Legacy Dance Studio, and we had a little under 400 kids. And, I'm able to survive through volume, even if we do start back again with these little 9 or 10 people in a class, I'd be working sun up to sundown and have to have an army for a staff. So I'm just trying to figure out what is, we did Zoom all the way from March through June. We didn't do a show. I'm currently doing CLI to keep the kids active, to keep the kids uplifted. Many of them did Dada. They're doing a lot. Most of them are Zoomed out. I'm not even getting 10% of my student body to participate. And today I just moved my whole storage. We do a Motown Nutcracker. I have all of my props and everything in my studio because I've just been paying storage space and trying to pay utilities and just everything. And my PPP has run out, dried up. And the reason why I got on this call is because I just like to hear, what people are doing and what some options are, because in Michigan, we shut down as well. Our governor is not playing, but I know that there are a lot of dance studios still having classes, and I'm just confused. Like, I like to know, what is the deal with that? I feel like if I'm complying with what the governor has requested and then other studios are not, how does that make me look? I'm just saying, I'm not trying to have a popularity contest or anything. I just want to make sure I'm doing right by my students and my parents and my teachers, my staff. So if anybody has anything that they can share, I'm open. Thank you guys for your time.
Definitely. I think that's a great transition is anyone currently hosting any classes in person right now? And if you are you willing to share how or what your state, if you're not in Michigan, what your state is allowing, not allowing for you to be able to do that? Or are you kind of breaking the rules and just going rogue?
Hi. We have not started. I will share with you a couple of the things that I did do and the focus. The focus that I have expressed to the people that I've worked with is that we're socially connected yet physically distant. So we have had a couple of classes in open areas, parks and parking lots. I taught them how to use the parking lot spaces as the 6 feet and then how to transition with the 6 feet. We took choreography that they had been working on, and we transitioned that into the parking spaces. So it was a lot of fun for them. The biggest thing was that they were able to still be around each other. And that's not just the kids, that's also the adults. They did a presentation, they recorded a presentation in a basketball court. We put them in their costumes just so that they could do it. Somebody wanted them to open up for an event. And so they put their costumes on, and we had to do one take because all the iPhones got hot that we had, set up. For the classes virtually, I will share this. As an educator, the perspective of going through the screen gives me the opportunity to see the details that we would have otherwise missed had we been rushing through class. So now we're fortifying foundations. So we've gotten into, you're supposed to initiate with the hip. You didn't initiate with the hip. Now I get to see it because I pinned you. And so I'm staring at you as you're working on it. That's the perspective. I actually did an opportunity to see a lot of growth. People who have been struggling with certain things for years, now they actually grew. And the other piece, the final piece, was arts integration, taking all of their academic concepts that they're working on, this gap that they experience going to remote learning, and using the art, particularly dance, to be able to express these concepts academically. And it's helping kids to be able to lock in on some of the things that they missed in that fourth quarter. So in the pivot, for us, it was also changing the perspective, because we are under a lot of pressure, and people always expect you to produce. But I think that to help the people that we're called to serve, how we looked at it helped them to be able to remain connected, because there was some continuity and some flow. So those were some of the things that we did. We haven't gotten into the classroom, into the actual studio space, because our studio space is too small. We actually would need to move out of that building to socially distance.
Thank you for sharing. Is there anyone else that has found maybe some innovative ways to keep their classes going in this time period?
Yes, if you don't mind, I'll join. My name is Adriana Ray. I'm the development director at IABD, but I'm also a TAP teacher. I teach for Miss Fortune at Jones Haywood, and I also teach at a school in Virginia. And the school in Virginia has actually gone back into the classroom. Everyone is wearing masks, and based on the size of each studio, there are only so many dancers who are allowed to be in at a time. I'm in a smaller size studio, so I believe it can only accommodate maybe 5 at max. And then the rest of the class is actually still on Zoom. And so some of the dancers that have just graduated out are serving as Zoom assistants. And so I'm giving real-time instruction in the room. The camera is angled in a way that the dancers can see me. And then there's an assistant who can give notes back to the dancers on the screen, and I can give notes to the dancers in the room. It does require that we have I have to bring my computer, and then I need a second device to play my music from so that it's not playing through the computer. I think largely because it's a TAP class. And those dancers on Zoom are still muted. But we're trying this for the summer session. And so after this week, the dancers who are present will rotate out and they will go back home. And then a new set of dancers will come in for the second 2 weeks. So that's the way that it's working so far. And the first week, everyone was home and we only had one assistant in the room. And so they were able to get a sense of how it was going to look. Class times have been shortened by 10 minutes so that the dancers can line up about 6 feet apart at least, and it's all marked off in the room. We have to sanitize and everything, wipe everything down in between every class. The dressing rooms are off limits. The bathrooms are for emergency only. And then the way that the studio is set up, the studios are kind of in an L shape. And so the dancers from the first room will go to the next. Then the dancers come down the hall and so on. And then everyone who's leaving exits and everyone who's staying has to stay inside until that group of dancers is out. And then they have a transition. And then the dancers who are coming in are able to transition. All stretching is happening on yoga mats. There's no floor work that's being, no floor work is being encouraged other than anything that can happen on a yoga mat. And then all dancers are instructed to sanitize their shoes and wipe down their yoga mat before entering and then after warm up.
That's a lot. I mean, it's great for safety, of course, but that's definitely shifting how we do dance and how we do dance in the studio. Does anyone else have,
I have a question for her. I would like to know, like, how are the students complying with everything, and like, what ages are the students who are in that process?
Sure. So the youngest dancers that I have are 6, and the kind of like that 5-6-year-old, that group, they're only in the classroom, and their classes are shortened. And so far they've been okay. I think you see some kids who are kind of fidgeting still, and then there are some parents who have opted for their dancers just to stay home. But I know that the youngest group is only 5 or 6. There are none of the preschool or toddler-ish age classes happening. And generally it's been, I mean, it's still early and it's just trial for the summer, but generally it's been okay. I asked the studio owners kind of what prompted this, and they said, like some of you have expressed, the Zoom fatigue and that churn, that dancers weren't continuing to engage. But they've seen a pickup in some of the registration by at least offering 1 or 2 opportunities over the summer session for dancers to come back into the room.
Yeah, I've had just like select dancers who come in and take classes, but it's not been anything formal, like they'll just rent the studio pretty much, maybe 3 of them, or a soloist and a choreographer or something like that. But I haven't ventured off into actual classes yet, but I do have guest choreographers. Since everybody now is accessible, I've definitely tapped into that resource and have had some, guest choreographers teach Zoom classes for the kids, and they have enjoyed that. But yeah, there's definitely Zoom fatigue going on.
okay, awesome.
This is, if I may, this is Abdul from Two Dance here in St. Paul, Minnesota. So we decided not to be offering classes in person because of certainly the risk, and also when we were starting our summer, I should say during the spring, we offer virtual classes, and then there was a small consideration of starting in the summer classes in the studio with, like Adriana said, a lot of, modifications, but first the risk is because of our space, it felt that the risk is too high. Cases were going up in Minnesota, especially in the Twin Cities. So we kind of got scared, and we decided not to do it, yet to take advantage of the online platform and have guest teachers from other parts of the country that would help us, motivate our students and other students around the country to join our summer. So we're having, and the information is going to come out this week, we're having a 1-week summer intensive with collaboration between Brown K. Brown, Evidence, and Tudens. And so instead of, yeah, we are going to be suffering. We're not going to make the money we were budgeting for our summer intensive, but how can we make this as an opportunity to make something that we couldn't have not done it otherwise?
We had to go onto the Zoom platform, obviously. I can honestly say that it was much better than I thought it would be, especially for me, because of my, as Carol said, because of the era in which I grow up in. I'm more pencil, paper, in-person kind of a teacher. And unlike somebody said, I think it was Amanda, I like the tactile experience much better. I think the kids cheat on Zoom, but they don't dare do that in person with me. And that was the one thing that I necessarily did not like for Zoom because of the comfortability that they had inside of their own homes. And it was getting better, and we were able to do it. Come September, we're going to do Zoom for the first or the fall semester. And then I'm going to slowly bring in some of the older children first to see where we go. We have a small space. We only have one studio. So I'm thinking just one class per day during the week. And on Saturday, maybe a few, because there can be a gap in between, and then I can clean up and all of those kinds of things. So the parents have been very cooperative at Jones Haywood, and Miss Foster, who helps me, wrote a very beautiful end of the year letter for me, and I got a lot of thank yous from that letter, Carol. So the older alums of Jones Haywood, they wanted to know if they could do a summer program, and they have done an outstanding job. So today was the first day of their Zoom summer intensive. So like Ms. Jones used to always tell me, it could be a whole lot worse. And I'm beginning to understand what that phrase means, because we're not doing badly. So I'm very happy about that.
Does anyone else want to kind of share what they're doing?
I have one other question about people who are doing classes outside in the parking lot. Have you guys contacted your insurance companies, and has that been a problem with anything? Does anybody know if, because the last time I don't know, I was just curious. I haven't done the outdoors yet, but I know people are doing that. And I was just wondering if anybody knows that, if that's a problem with their insurance company, especially if they're on a lot with other businesses that have to park.
We have not, it's Pat again, Afro One Dance, Drama, and Drum Theater. We have not tried outdoor classes, and the reason why we haven't is because of the parking lot being shared with other businesses. Because within drumming sound, we have live drums. There's residents who would start complaining that you had people out in the parking lot drumming. But the other thing is that you were required to get a permit. And so you can't just go into the parks or the parking lots here and start an activity. You actually had a permit. And so we thought about that and then decided that wasn't a good idea. And the other thing we thought about, because we were not allowed to do anything until about a week ago, the studio had to be closed. You couldn't even have private lessons. We weren't allowed to do anything. And so we thought we would do something for the summer. Well, today would have been when we started some kind of summer program using outdoor resources or whatever, and we're in the midst of a heat wave, 100 degrees. There's no way that we would be having classes outside. And so
Right.
those things killed the idea of us going into the parking lot or going into the parks or trying to decide whether or not the weather was going to cooperate. And none of those things happened. So that's why we haven't been able to do it. We did not check with our insurance company, but that is an excellent point because the insurance company indicates every time you do something outside of your building, you have to get a certificate from them as well.
Right. Right.
Sandra, go ahead.
Yeah, and speaking it, like my insurance went up because of the COVID-19. And then my concern with the kids taking Zoom at home is falling into the kitchen sink and teachers giving something that's not conducive to the space in their house. Luckily, I didn't have that problem because my teachers have good sense. But it was worrying me half to death because all I could see was somebody doing a tour jeté into a china cabinet. And actually, one little girl who is very weak in her core, she was doing a port de bras back and fell into the coffee table. So, right, and I got her like she had never gotten before because she just wasn't holding herself. And she's young and she's got one of those frail, thin bodies and halfway asleep. But I was very, very concerned about them doing dance in their homes. And I was petrified about that in terms of liability and insurance. And my insurance did go up even though they were at home, but they were still under my 501c3 number. And we all know how these parents are. Everybody's looking for a free dollar bill.
Right.
So I had to lay down some hard and fast, candid and very curt rules about their space. And fortunately, other than the little girl falling into the sofa, it worked well. But you're right, that liability, especially with children, because you have, and children who are learning. I mean, I don't know about you all, but none of the children in my school are professional dancers, all right?
All right.
They are in training. And
Right.
so it's the redundancy of the same thing over and over and over again. And I felt that because they were home, it didn't have the same impact. But if they were in that studio, I would have been able to get a different kind of result.
Sandra, I want to thank you for that. And I want to alert everybody to the story that ran yesterday in the New York Times. And it's in the dance section, and you can really find a link to it quite easily online. But it talked about all of the schools across the country who attempted to do innovative things, especially holding performances outside. And one of the stories that they told, the dance teacher was saying she was executing a move in her living room and she went to do a glissade or whatever and she broke her ankle. And those are some of the unanticipated things that can happen when you're in your home trying to dance. And I agree with you. I said to myself, I would never ask the student to do a tour jeté in their space. What exactly what does that mean? And so you should look for that link, the story. It's a very interesting story, many voices speaking to the kinds of things that they attempted to do. And one of the concerns is you could hurt yourself or your students could get hurt as you're doing these things online.
And the other thing for this year, excuse me, did I speak out of turn?
Amanda was just trying to get in, but she's deferring to you, so go ahead.
Okay. For this year, when Jones Haywood opens, I'm going to suggest that their space be clear. I'm going to recommend that they get a ballet bar. I'm going to recommend that they get a piece of Marley and clear up their space. And I'm thinking that if the space is more conducive to the art form, perhaps the seriousness of their participation will go up.
Mhm.
because I don't know about how some of these children live, because there's so much junk in this room, I can't even see what they're doing. So I'm going to suggest and recommend that they clean up their area, so that it has a little more seriousness and a better look as we look at them through the Zoom platform. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Hi, I want to address that. One of the things that I did when we started our Zooms, when we pivoted to the Zoom classes, I'm 59, so I was old school and thinking, oh, I don't know about this Zoom thing. But one of the things that I did was that once a week, I held Zoom meetings with the parents. And so we held short, about 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. I held short meetings once a week with the parents. Uh, and I wanted them to make sure their space was clear because we too had trouble with dogs in the room, siblings trying to take class, all kinds of crazy stuff was happening. So what we did was we had weekly Zoom parent information meetings, and we required the kids to wear their dance attire. We sent some videos home with how to create your own ballet bar at home, how to create your own tap floor. We answered questions that parents had. We wanted to make the environment at home. We wanted them to make the environment at home as close to the class environment as they could. So many of the parents created ballet bars, they put down floors, they cleared the spaces. We held our classes at the same time that our regular classes were being held. So it kept the consistency. We demanded that they have their uniforms when they weren't in uniforms or doing things like falling over the bed. I had to come to Jesus with them right there on the Zoom, said, where's your mom? Call her to the camera. We're going to get this straight right now. And so the first couple of weeks, there was a lot of that going on. But surprisingly, I did find that some of the kids that were having challenges in the studio actually did well at home. Some of them didn't. We had about 75% of our enrollment when we pivoted to Zoom. So we did lose about 25% of our enrollment, but most of our students did stay. We trained our teachers on the platform. We looked for the best types of audio and visual, and I had to, reinvent myself because I'm not technologically suave at all. So we got the right, it took us a while, but we got the right audio, we got the right visuals, we explained to the parents how to log on and what to do. So each week we were able to clear up some of those issues of things of kids falling down and doing all kinds of crazy stuff on camera. And once we got that going, we got the parents involved, but the little kids, the younger ones, our preschoolers, we have a graded curriculum that goes from pre-K through 12th grade, even though we're an after-school program. The parents were dancing with the kids. We did a few, for the younger ones, we did fun themed classes. We did a couple of Disney princess things. We did a tea party ballet where the parents could be involved, where we were going through technique and also terminology. So we kind of made it more of a fun class as opposed to the structure that they normally would get in class for the younger ones. The older ones, we kept the same structure that we had in class. We worked on recital choreography because I just kept preparing them as if we would have some type of performance. So I found that having the Zoom meetings with the parents ahead of time was really good. Going back, we're going to return slowly and safely. We're bringing back our company kids. We did our company auditions online where the kids had to turn in their audition videos. We gave them choreography to learn. So we're going to bring our company kids back because they're used to being in the studio with rules and regulations and following strict instructions. So we're going to bring those kids back first, the first week, which will be probably the second week of August. And then we're going to keep the little kids in Zoom, and we're going to slowly transition until September back into our full schedule with our full students. We actually ran a Facebook ad and got 79 kids to register in one day. So we do have a couple of classes that are already full. I have families who only want to do Zoom. They're not comfortable. We're in Louisiana, so we have high numbers here as well. I have some parents who don't want to do in class at all. We have these cute little, I don't know if you can see, it says my stuff here stickers. So we have those. We're gonna put out for them to place their dance bags. We have some Mind Your Space stickers with 6 feet social distancing with squares marked off in our studios. We have 2 classrooms, so we can accommodate about 9 kids in each class. They're marked off. We have wall markers that say stand here for the ballet bar. They're going to be required to get ballet bar covers for the older ones so that they will come in with their own bar cover. It's Velcroed on the back and they'll hold their own space. We'll clean in between each class. We have some really cute Hamilton Academy, I lost my earplug, face masks. So we will require everyone, teachers and students, to come back with masks initially. So we have a hybrid version where we'll have some kids come in the studio. We'll have some kids that will be online. We have a technology person who will be in the classroom to troubleshoot any issues the parents may be having in terms of Zoom. And then we have an assistant teacher in each class to accommodate, that'll work with the kids, you know, on Zoom as well as the kids in the classroom. How that's gonna work, I'm just keeping my fingers crossed and praying real hard that it's gonna flow nicely. But we have the infrared thermometer, so we'll be doing the temperature checks. We have the hand sanitizers. We have stations set up. We have put together a video for the parents on this is how the kids will enter the studio. This is how they'll exit the studio. We will not be allowing any parents in the lobby. They'll come in, we'll temperature check, wash hands, and then they'll go to their designated spots, and the parents will not be able to stay in the building. So, because it'll make us run over the allotted numbers that we can have in our space. So it'll be just the kids, and we kind of have, you know, we've gone through some trial runs of how we think it'll work. And so praying that it'll go well. Don't know until we started, but keep, you know, just keep us in prayer that it'll go well. But so far, what we've been able to do has been pretty, I mean, just really amazing. I'm very grateful that we were able to do the things that we were able to do thus far. And we do have, I believe, some good protocols in place. Of course, you know, we have to be flexible because, you know, we're dealing with the human element, but we are doing limited classroom numbers. We are doing the social distancing. The kids will have markers. They will have space placers. All of those things will happen. We will have staggered classes. We'll have cleaning between classes. And our staff has been wonderful. We're going to train them on how the protocol is going to happen beforehand. We're training our admins now. So we'll see what happens.
Thank you. Amanda, I want to give you a chance to jump in if you're still interested in saying whatever you had on your mind.
I checked in with the insurance company. They do not have a COVID rider. That's the one that I have. The first parking lot experiences were in our parking lot. So we only went to the park twice. So we really didn't need a rider for the park because people were just participating because they went to the park. And it just so happened that there was some music playing and that they kind of started dancing together. But for the parking lot where we were situated, where we actually did classes, that worked. We didn't need a rider for it because it's still on our property. That's still our studio. So you can do that. with regard to the creative spaces, because I also teach in the school system, I literally had to put together a flyer, a bullet point flyer with pictures, and to teach the children how to create a space. And if they value their space sanctuary, then the people in their home will value it too. You've got to teach Toto that he can't come in here when you're doing XYZ. So you don't get to hug him. You also don't get to show us your toys, all of the distractions that they naturally have. It was training for everybody. So I don't think that we will have to go into the fall season the way we were thrown into this season, because we do have some best practices, if you will, what works and what doesn't work. For everybody, they need a step-by-step, this is what you do. You need to wear this, you need to do that, you need to value this, and then your family will value that. You need to make sure that you move this out of the way. When I did something for television for PGCPS, I told the students that they needed 4 steps forward, 4 steps back, 4 steps to the right, 4 steps to the left. That means that all of that had to be clear so that they would do that. On the educator end, I will be a fool to ask somebody to do a tombe part of a regularly side Padishah. I'm trying to kill you in your space. So that's where the fortification of your foundation came from. I want to teach you what's necessary for you to get to that progression. So let me get back to what you were not doing well before that. Because every time you went to do that tour jeté, you still didn't understand alignment. You still didn't understand that you were squared. So let's go back to what you need to do to get squared, so that when you do have the opportunity to move again, you're on the leg because you understand those movement principles. That's how we worked the screen. That's what made it easier for us, if that makes sense. Yeah, okay.
One of the things that I was, that it sounds like there's some opportunity here, right? So I think, Sandra, you mentioned asking them to get bars, asking them to get Marley floor, everyone's going to be required to wear masks. So have any of you thought about using these opportunities for where your students have to make these purchases to either work with the company so that you can get a discounted rate for your students, or even a cut of like, hey, can you be our studio supplier essentially, and you would get a percentage of sales that came from your studio? Like, has there been any thought behind that as we look for innovative ways to make up the difference, since it sounds like, people are anticipating they're not going to get 100% retention, right? So what ways are people, trying to innovate or pivot in what they can build their, in building revenue, excuse me. Go ahead, Sandra.
Oh, I just had that conversation with a parent of mine earlier, and she volunteered to do that, to see. And I went on Amazon, and the piece of Marley is about $189, which is sufficient for the lack of space and traveling combinations. It's not like they're going to need a lot, but just to prevent any slipping. So I already have a parent that's kind of on that right now for September.
Grace.
Okay, so in terms of uniforms, we've been doing this for about 4 years. We have a contract with a company called Nimbly, which is a part of Revolution. And so all of our classes are required to have class uniforms. They order their uniforms. We have a storefront that's online, because I used to offer uniforms within the studio, but keeping track of the inventory was just too much. So we work with Nimbly, which is a division of Nimbly, and we create a storefront, and the parents order the uniforms. They come into the studio. We'll have to do private one-on-one this year, but they come into the studio, they get measured, they order their uniforms, their leotards, their tights, their dance bags, ballet shoes, tap shoes, jazz shoes online. It ships to the parent. and they have them ready for class. And then Nimbly sends us a commission check, based upon whatever the total order is for a certain period of time. So we get a rebate on the orders. It's not a huge check, but it is another source of income. And we because we're in a smaller community, a couple of the dance supply stores closed. So this is going to really be a help to the parents because they are not going to be able to go to purchase. So this is going to help them. They can go online, purchase it. We make a little commission. It's an extra source of income for the studio, and it's uniformity across the board for all classes. So that's been a big. It's been an extra source of income. We just got a check the other day for like $800, which was really good in the middle of the summer because we're closed right now. So, from our order for the spring. So that's something, if anybody's interested in that process and how it works, I would be willing to, share that with whoever might be interested.
Yeah, if you can share that link in the chat, that would be great. Has anyone else considered other revenue sources or how they can take advantage of the opportunity if you're going to be asking your students to take on additional supplies? Well, I definitely think it's something to consider as you are, creating plans and figuring out how you want to reopen in the fall, that there may be opportunities, even working with other small business owners with the mask and maybe having it branded with your studio branding on it could be an opportunity as well. One of the other things that I kind of heard was a lot of like training that had to go into those who have gotten to that point, a lot of training. Can some of you guys speak to what that training actually looked like? Like I know it was kind of mentioned like, oh, we trained, but what did that look like? Training your teachers, training your admin to prepare for a hybrid or fully online program? Go ahead, Amanda.
We did a pivot into pedagogy. We went back to everything that you thought you learned in the classroom and you thought that you experienced, and had to turn it to how it would be valuable in the lesson. So we taught how to have your objective for your goal for that particular class, and then backtrack to figure out what you need to do to get to that goal within the limitations and confines that you had. And then we talked about how to engage media and sound to support what you were doing in your class. So that's how the training worked out. So you have to sit down and they have to do a mock class and a mock lesson plan, and then work through all of the steps so that you can have a flow. You always know that there's going to be some technical difficulties. Sometimes people are not going to be able to sign on. So you have to have an administrator in the class. That person will be your co-host. They'll let people in to ensure that nobody else comes into the classroom that's not supposed to be in there. And then if they need to be the person to hit the slides for you, they would hit the slides for you if there's something that you wanted to show, particularly if we were going to do vocabulary, because the students lack that. The terminology is not strong. So being able to show them and now do it, spell it, and now execute it. That was the kind of thing that we did. So it became a new learning experience for the educator too, because they were like, wow, I didn't even know that I could do that. And then there are some things. I just went to an arts integration conference. So there are some things that you can use in the technique with technology that'll help reinforce what you're trying to see them execute. So I'll just send a list, because it was a laundry list. So I'll send that for you.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else have any training tips, suggestions? Abdo and then Sandra.
Yeah, when we started teaching online, of course, we had no experience. In fact, we were one of those who were like, online teaching is for dance should never happen, and now we kind of like it. But we did several meetings with our teachers and our accompanists. First, we asked them, "Are you interested in doing this?" Several of them were skeptical, others were sure because they've had that experience doing workshops somewhere, for their own personal growth. Um, and something very special happened, especially with the musicians who, some of them had experience and shared, um, tips, and shared also instruments and mics and things for the instruments to play better. And they created their own group within our faculty. So musicians help each other to figure that out. Our teachers would develop, or our school director develop, a list of things, a protocol, and what to do if you get kicked out of the room. A whole thing of instructions. We also had one staff person per class to be sure that nobody was Zoom booming the class, or that if the kids had any trouble, we will be able to help them. So that took away the stress from the teacher to take care of multiple things. And we had an open form, a Google form for the teachers and the companies and for the families, where they could at any time fill it up and say, just provide a comment, this is not working, or is it possible for this to be changed? We created also a guide for the families on how to prepare your dance space, similar to, I think what Grace said, or Amanda, that is 4 steps forward and back and side to side. But we were very flexible because we didn't want the families to have extra expenses. So we asked them to have their uniforms, and but we were very careful with their living conditions. Some families had like a studio in their houses, beautiful, with a bar installed and everything. Some others were dancing on carpet, and we had cats and dogs walk in front because, or family members, because that was the only space where they could be, was where the traffic was happening. So our school director talked to some parents to see if they could block the time and make sure that they respect the privacy of the student, kind of thing. But it was a lot of learning through the experience. We are a little concerned about doing hybrid and having a very small staff, and how we're going to clean the studios and make sure that the students keep the distance, and that the parents don't come into the space, and who's going to take the temperature and the masks. And so we are very concerned about the amount of hours, people hours, that we will need from the staff, which half of them are part-time, to be able to accomplish all of this. So.
Sandra?
Okay, for us, because taking the class in the traditional sense was very limited, for the first time, I was able to incorporate some written assignments. And I got a lot of pushback from the parents. But once we got past that, it was good, because I don't think parents understand that dancers also have to be scholars. And so they had to watch some documentaries, and I had given them some essay questions, and they had a due date. And the one assignment that I'd like to share with you all that was interesting to me is for the older kids in the intermediate/advanced, whatever that means. I gave them some very advanced terminology, and they had to create either a 3-circle or a 2-circle Venn diagram. And my goodness, that was like rocket science, but they got it done with a lot of complaints. So it was just interesting to listen to the parents make excuses for these children about why they cannot get something done. And so I had to speak to them in the way that I speak to them, because I'm very transparent. I'm just very truthful and very objective. And so they got it done, but it was a struggle. And by the end of the session, which was June 6th for us, I had all of the assignments from everybody, to include the 5-year-olds. So that was another way of reiterating the content area without necessarily being able to take a full class in the physical sense.
I appreciate what you said. I think it's, well, I teach on 2 levels. Let me say that. I teach on 2 levels. I have the studio, which accommodates primarily K through 12 or straight, adults as well. But I also teach on a university level. The university level, when you start talking to students, they enroll in an African dance class, they want to take the class, but then you do have to bring all the academic, the scholarly stuff along with it. Even on that level, there's a great deal of resistance. But because it's college level and because they're getting 4 credits, they eventually comply. What I'm really concerned about is on the K through 12 level, after school dance instruction, is that what the parents really want is that dance instruction. Not so much of that scholarly, we're going to read some material on it. I don't think that's what they're interested in. And there have been times, many times, for example, we'll say, we want you all to watch a film, or we're going to take you to the movies to see something, and so on and so forth. And some of the parents say that, okay, that's okay. But for the most part, that's not what they want. They are really looking for instruction. And that's why I'm extremely concerned about what's going to happen in September. We have parents, and you may have some of these as well. We have parents that bounce around from dance school to dance school just to make certain that their kids are getting certain kind of physical, technical kind of instruction. I mean, if you say a ballet term wrong, they'll assume that you're not as sharp as somebody over there. We're going there because all we want is really the instruction. They're looking for the technique part. And so I don't see as a real option on the studio level, as far as what we're doing in the neighborhood. I don't think they want the academic part. I think they really want the physical, teach me how to turn, I need to do a double turn, or whatever the case may be. And although we provide them with all kinds of reading material, that's not what they want. And so I don't know if that's going to fill a particular void for us. I appreciate what you're saying, and yes, and like I said, university level, I can get away with that. But K through 12, I'm unsure of.
Well, I can get away with it at the high school that I teach in because they get a grade. Now at the Jones Haywood, because there's no grade in the literal sense, but if I was to attach a grade to their performance at Jones Haywood, then I would get a lot of pushback from the parents then, because none of it would be an A, so.
Can I ask like one last question?
Of course.
Now 15 minutes. I want to hear what people are doing about the fact that you may simply just be running out of money. We certainly launched a tremendous fundraising campaign. Actually, we raised more money for the Save Afro One campaign than we had for previous fundraisers. But regardless of the amount that we were able to raise, I'm fully cognizant of the fact that it is not enough. And I'm wondering what kind of challenges you're thinking come September. We needed money to pay for 6 to 8 months of operation with no income coming in. I'm wondering what other kinds of things are you able to do as far as having enough funds on hand? And yes, we've looked at the grants, and yes, we looked at the state money and the possibility of federal money and local money, et cetera. But we're at a point where we realize this is all we have. And we're not sure what we're going to do when it runs out, especially since now we're considering the real possibility come September, even if we open up again, we may be at only 50% capacity. So what are people doing about getting more money from anywhere?
Go ahead, Abdo.
So one of the things I did, and it was recommended at a different conversation, I reached out to our insurance agent, and I told them, you know, our summer intensive is going to be online. The risk is very low now, because, you know, it's the liability of anything happening in the building is different through cyber insurance or whatever she explained. So I got a reduction of our liability insurance. And also I asked her about applying for or opening a claim for lost revenue, and we got $30,000. So I didn't know we were covered, but there was something uh, in our insurance, and we have Philadelphia insurance, which a lot of dance companies have. So they were very fast. Within a week, I had a check for 30,000. I basically told them I lost revenue for our company performances, our school performances, you know, classes that we usually get revenue, open classes for the community or workshops that we couldn't have. So they asked me, can you send me, you know, for the last 3 years, a comparison of how much income you get from all of this. And they did a, you know, a medium, and then they just said that we were approved, and they sent me a check for 30,000. I've also heard that that should not affect our future insurance, you know, what we pay for insurance, because I think the federal government is trying to stop for insurance companies to do that. And then the other thing is we're doing, and in fact, this Thursday, we're launching a fundraising. What we're doing is taking a lot of our photos from all of our students, and we're doing with our photographer a fundraising where parents are going to purchase photos. They can purchase them and put them in a mug, print them or whatever, and we get 75% of everything that is going to be sold. Plus, the photographer is also giving the parents a discount of 25%, and she's giving us part of what she will get if she ever gets hired by these people. Those two quick ideas there. So.
And they're quite wonderful. Unfortunately, we don't have Philadelphia insurance. We have to look into that. We have a clause in our insurance that says we, in fact, are not covered. And I remember reading too that the Dance Theater of Harlem had that problem, that whatever insurance they had, they said, no, you're not, pandemic is not covered. So that's good to know. You know, we have to look into that. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Sandra, you had your hand raised. You're on mute.
I just wanted to ask anybody, did you all get the SBA loan, the small business loan?
We did not. We did not. And we didn't get it because we are a nonprofit organization.
So am I.
Yeah, but the stipulation they had for the New Jersey one is that you also had to demonstrate you were going to lose the equivalent of full-time employees, and we could not demonstrate that.
Okay.
You know, our teachers are contract, you know, workers, and that was a big part. That's a big hole in that particular program, and so we applied for both on a state and the federal level, and we couldn't demonstrate. We're nonprofit, and some of the programs said this is for profit-making organizations, but the nonprofit part also said you had to have employees, you have to prove that you're going to hang on to your employees, you're not going to lay off your employees, and because everybody was a contract worker, whether they were a performer or the teachers, we didn't qualify. And they just launched another couple programs in New Jersey. Jersey City is the example of this, where the city has set aside several millions of dollars just for nonprofit organizations. And it's part of the CARES COVID funding that the cities can get. Our challenge with that particular program is has to be administered by the government locally. And so we are located actually in a suburban area. And so there is no city in the middle of the suburbs. And so our township is not in a position to go say, we want to get some of the COVID funds to save the nonprofits in our township. We may be only one of 4 or 5 nonprofits in the total township. But if you're in a city, they had money specifically for the nonprofits under the COVID that is not related to, you have to hold on to all your employees, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank
So
you.
we have 2 separate entities. We have a nonprofit as well as a for-profit. And so our for-profit did get the EIDL loan, and our state is getting ready to do another round through the SBA for small minority women business owners. So that's going to, I think, be available on the 28th of July. So we're going to apply for that as well. So I've applied for funds, I've received funds, and I'm continuing to apply for other funds as a for-profit, our for-profit division of our studio. So that's kind of how we were able to sustain ourselves during the summer. Our staff applied because most of our staff are contract as well. So they applied for, there was a grant through the SBA where I think it ran like 2 weeks ago. It was only $1,000, but all of our staff was able to apply for that and get that funding through the Small Business Administration.
I wanted to say a couple things. Just in response to some of this conversation, IABD currently is a member of the Performing Arts Alliance, which is a coalition of nonprofits across the performing arts. So not only dance, music, theater, and other areas, traditional arts, etc. And this coalition works specifically in the area of advocacy in the arts. There is currently legislation that is headed to federal government, the Senate and the House, specifically around non-employer business assistance. And I know, Patricia, you and I have spoken in detail around this, and this I'm sure applies for many of you all on this call. So there is legislation that is headed for approval to specifically deal with that gap that is recognized and we, the field, are very much aware of. So fingers crossed, right, that we're able to get some additional assistance in that area as another round of funding specific again to that non-employer business assistance where you're operating a organization. However, you know, as it's indicated, you're not able to show full-time employment, but you are operating an organization that deals specifically with 1099 employees and or contract workers. So these are things that are happening. I know that many of the programs, the federal programs, are extending deadlines and or making, you know, funds available again through other rounds. And so this next round, if this legislation goes through, will be really critical to some continued sustainment in our field specifically. So just sharing that as a point of reference and information that, you know, the folks are aware and that lobbyists and folks who are dealing on those levels with the House and Senate are putting forward legislation. So it's good to keep in contact, you know, with people who are in your state. Let them know what's going on. where you are still needing assistance. So this type of information can make it up and make it through the rounds of votes on the House and Senate floors. So it is very important. One aspect is advocacy. Just continue to be in touch with your representatives in your state and letting them know what the needs are so that this push can continue, specifically right from the sector.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for giving us some time in the evening today to talk with you. This has really been helpful and informational, I must say, even just listening and having spoken to many of you, but also listening to you all as well. Before we go, I do want to ask Abdo, because you mentioned those additional funds that you were able to get from insurance, through insurance. And I know we're right at 7:30, if it's okay. It just really intrigued me. Would you be able to just really briefly just talk about the process that you went through, or like how you were able to access? I mean, 30 grand is pretty significant and can get, I think, a number of people through. So I'm just wondering if you could really briefly, and I apologize, if you all need to jump off, please do. But I'll just say thank you. But I just felt it was really important for him to share that information, just because I heard, some needs from all of you all in terms of just that possibility of funding.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
apologize, Jay. If you could just hang in just a few more minutes with the interpreter. Thank you.
Yeah, pretty quickly I reached out to our insurance agent. She said, just open a claim, even if you think you're not covered. They will let you know. So I just went online, opened the claim, said that it was loss of revenue, and they contacted me the following day asking a few questions that were very, very specific. I mean, nothing difficult. How much did you lost? And they determined within 48 hours since I opened the claim that we qualified. And it was so simple, just very simple. In fact, the person from the insurance company was like, I want to get you this money as soon as possible, because they know that we are, needing from everywhere. So if there is the only thing they ask is for us to be able to demonstrate the loss of revenue. So I contacted, for example, the theaters where we were going to perform to write a letter where they said, we had to cancel because the city basically closed this, we're in lockdown. Therefore, they couldn't have their performances. It was kind of an official letter. I have that done for the 2 different theaters where we were going to perform, and I sent that to them, and that was the only thing they asked.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful. So if some of you all might, if you have that insurance in place, contact your insurance companies. Thank you again, everyone. I hope you continue to stay safe, stay healthy. These are challenging times, and it's good for us to kind of connect, come together, hear what each other are doing, and continue to support one another as well. I will always say, we are all over the country, and so we are all have the ability to do different things, but make sure you are operating your businesses safely and that you are taking the necessary precautions as prescribed by your state and local government. That is absolutely critical. But continue to take care of yourselves. Reach out to IABD. Thank you, Vanessa Levels Hall, for organizing tonight. Thank you to the staff for the support. And thank you for being here this evening.